seconds.
I'm okay in this, yeah?
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Good afternoon to everybody. I'm very happy to be with you today. My name is Anna Panagopoulou, Director in DG Research and Innovation, responsible for European Research Area and Innovation Policy. We had a very fruitful introduction at the plenary session on innovation, what is the way forward, with our Commissioner Gabriel and the member of the European Parliament, Christian Eller, and of course our Director General Jean-Éric Paquet, which they paved the way on what we are going to discuss today at 5 parallel sessions. One of it is innovation ecosystem. It's not a better place to discuss what are the challenges to improve the situation on European innovation ecosystem and probably to create a pan-European innovation ecosystem than the R&I days. Europe has been always the forefront for research and science, and it is known that has some of the best research institutions and universities in the world. This year's innovation scoreboard demonstrated that we have experienced a 12.5% overall improvement in innovation performance between 2014 and 2021 across dimensions such as venture capital expenditures, resources productivity, innovative SMEs collaborating with others, job-to-job mobility of human resources in science technology, and product innovators. It also illustrates that we have some unique strengths. Europe is doing well on environmental sustainability and digitalization. We are also strong on environment-related patents and ICT employments. And we are also a top player in scientific production and excellence, accounting worldwide for 23% of top city scientific publications on the topic of climate, 70% of the field of energy, and 25% of bioeconomy. However, the innovation scoreboard of 2021 demonstrates also that there are several international players, such as Canada, Australia, and US, and Japan, that have an innovation performance lead over the EU when we compare the framework conditions, the investments, innovation activities, and the impacts. So, what we can do more? We have put in place a very ambitious framework program under Horizon Europe, Pillar 3, the EIC, with 13 billion euros with the EIT and the European innovation ecosystem. So we put investments at European level. Is it enough? Can we do something more? What we can put in place in the context of European innovation policy, and in particular in the area of the ecosystem, in order to be able to increase our competitiveness and to improve our performance. Today, with us, 3 very innovative personalities, I would say, that they have been working over the years in the innovation area, starting with Peter Festerbacka, an entrepreneur from the Finnish Bay Area at the heart of Eurasia, Helsinki, Finland. You are, Peter, a creator of Slash and Angry Birds, to name few, investor and entrepreneur at heart and one of the members of the Innovation Ecosystem Leaders Group. We have also Anita Krohn Traseth, the EIC Advisory Board member, Norwegian business executive and author, currently chairwoman of the Executive Board of Startup Norway, and former Director of Innovation Norway, and former Managing Director at Hewlett Packard in Norway. And last but not least, Antonia Mesrik-Rates, the Head of Government Relations of EU funding, Rimac Automobile Croatia, car manufacturer that develops and produces electric sport cars, drivetrains and battery systems, one of the European unicorns. I will invite everybody of you to reply to a few questions from my side. And also, for those that are following this session today, and I hope you are many, I would like to ask you to use the Q&A through the Slido that we've put in place in order to put your questions or your statements, and I'm sure that our panelists will be able to reply to those. But let me start with Peter. Peter, I would like to thank you first of all for joining us today. As someone who had so much success as an entrepreneur with several successful business behind, including Finesse, the Bay Area, can you tell us what is the main problem of making disruptive innovations and technologies in Europe, and how we build up successful European innovation ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think this is exactly the problem where we started right now, that we're very good at Europe at identifying problems. I think that it's a lot, maybe it's our culture in Europe and all of that, but I think that I really think that it's all about attitude. And if we actually look at the other way around, and then, you know, like we start looking at what we've actually achieved in Europe, and of course, innovation and success and all of that is not totally like evenly distributed all across Europe, and we have like some fantastic hotspots, you know, here and there when it comes to innovation, and in different areas, different parts of Europe, and I think that's part of our like diversity, that's very good actually, that it's not all the same, and that's strength of Europe. But I think that you know, I've been using Estonia as a fantastic example, because it's a very easy metric, that 1.3 million people, and they have created 7 unicorn companies, so 7 companies worth more than $1 billion, and that's actually a world record. I mean, it means that you need less than 200,000 people in Estonia to create a unicorn. And if you do the same metric for, let's say, our friends in China, there they have 200 unicorn companies, but they also have 1.4 billion people, which means that if you do the math, they need 7 million people to create just one unicorn. So the efficiency that our friends in Estonia have had at this is like amazing. So, you know, we have this kind of like leading ecosystems here and there in Europe, and I think that if you look at this, we are already kind of like number one. But then when I started using this metric as an example, I mean, if you do the math, then it means that in Germany we should have like over 400 unicorns, more than 300 unicorns in France, and so on and so on. And then I was told that, Peter, but hey, that would mean that Europe would be better than the US. And I think that this is kind of like, again, the reaction that, hey, wait a minute, you know, you are saying that we could be better. And I think that we have a bit of this kind of like thing that we always see the problems, but actually we have fantastic universities. And of course we can do better, even better, but we shouldn't kind of like dismiss the success that we've had. And we are actually making fantastic progress. So I think Europe is the place to be when it comes to innovation and creating more of these kind of success stories.
Thank you very much, Peter. So we do have fantastic universities, and Europe has to be the place to promote innovation. But Anita, you are one of the biggest advocates for Norwegian and European startups and EIC Advisory Board member. Could you please tell us what are the biggest challenges, but also solutions to have a strong European innovation ecosystem? How can the European innovation ecosystem help to make a stronger European Council could help to make a strong European innovation system that is fair, inclusive, and well-connected?
Thank you, and hello from Norway. I just have to start by agreeing with Peter, my Finnish friend, because I put up 3 challenges, which is also, of course, representing possibilities. And the first one is that in Europe, we have a brand and self-esteem issue. I think we have an unfair lack of look to Innovation Europe effect, because specifically, if you look to the younger generations, they associate exactly what you said in the opening, Anna. We associate America and Asia and Canada with the more innovative regions. which is correct too, because they are the winners of the fifth innovation wave. Europe is more connected to research, industry, old, conservative, a little bit bureaucratic. So that's the first one. It's the brand and self-esteem issue. The second challenge is the knowledge issue, because Europe is fragmented. Our innovation system is fragmented. I don't see that necessarily as an obstacle. From an innovation perspective, fragmentation is really good. If we were all alike, it would not be much innovation, but it is demanding. There's a lot of innovative players and programs across Europe, whether it's in Estonia, in France, in Spain, Norway. There's a lot of what I call tacit innovation competence and best practices that needs to be shared. Just being aware of what's happening in Norway, a small country with 5.3 million people, is hard to comprehend. And then scaling it to Europe with over 50 regions and countries, we have a job to do, informing and spreading this knowledge about Europe as an innovation hub. And also, there are a same key issue for a lot of member countries, and that is that we lack knowledge of how to scale new business and transform existing industry fast enough. Because there's a lot of regions and countries in Europe that suffer from an insufficient number of firms with strong innovation capabilities. And the last challenge I pointed out is what I call the CCC issue: connection, capital, and competence. So we still need to build bridges between research and business, because there's like red and blue. We have a solid history and really strong competence in building bridges between research institutions, but not so much enabling cooperation with business, and not to forget the entrepreneurs and the investors and the capital for growth. These are areas with different languages, different systems on how to make success. And we have to make the financial markets more responsive to what we call high growth opportunities in highly innovative activities. And coming back to your second question, this is where the European Innovation Council comes in, because the timing could not have been better. Because now we're entering the sixth wave of innovation. It's called the Green and Sustainability Wave. And this is the time where we can reposition Europe. And I would say that with the ambitious and brave European Green Deal, it's a fundament. And it's our common growth strategy for the whole of Europe, where the ultimate goal is to make Europe the first climate neutral continent in the world by 2050. Innovation will be a key factor to make this deal happen. And EIC will play a critical role here, because EIC opens up for all innovators in Europe, from garages, startups, and research environments. And it's connecting startups and corporations and providing funding and programs. And I would like to say very clearly that the EIC is not representing a competition to national programs. It's complementary and strengthening the possibilities for innovators to create disruptive innovations. And I would say that the pilot period that we've been in now has demonstrated that this works. And EIC offers more, far more, I would say, than just funding. And I will point out the business acceleration services delivered by EIC. In addition to funding, it will give them partners, expertise, mentors, coaches, investors. And also, I would say that EIC is complementary to other EU initiatives that work in close synergy with the EIT, as well as the new initiative, European Innovation Ecosystems. And I would also like to point out, and I'm really proud of the EIC, and the vehicle has now done an extraordinary job to remove administrative barriers and increase flexibility. I have to be very honest and say that EU now at sometimes moves faster than Norway. Of course, there's still a lot of work to be done when it comes to administrative barriers, but the newly established innovation agency has for sure arrived to stay and to grow. And just a side comment here, I think that a stronger innovation focus for Europe is not only about creating more jobs, creating more companies. It is needed to secure the European freedom, the democracy, the security, the stability, the health of the region. So we are well positioned to become the leaders in the next wave of innovation, which is the sixth wave.
Thank you very much, Anita. You are certainly one of the greatest ambassadors I've ever heard about European Innovation Council and the work that was done, and extremely happy with what you said. I took note also about that the fragmentation could be a strength. It's not a problem, could be the solution itself if it is used in the most appropriate way by sharing knowledge, experience, and working together. So I would like to turn now to Antonia. Antonia, you're representing one of the European unicorns. The question to you is, you heard what Peter said, what Anita said. My question to you is, what are, in your view, the key success factors for innovative companies across Europe, especially for innovators coming from Eastern and Central Europe? We have the example of North Europe. What about Eastern and Central Europe? And how can we use great examples from less developed regions to ensure the whole continent can move together? So working, advancing together.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question, and thank you for having me here at this conference. I'm happy to share some of our knowledge and our experience to the wider community. So I can reflect and give the answer also from the perspective of some of my previous positions. Namely, I spent over 16 years in the public sector. I worked at the Business Innovation Agency of Croatia and also at the designated ministry that was responsible for innovation policy as well. And I have been keeping track of the company Rimac Automobili even when it wasn't a company yet. It was just a person with a vision, with an idea. So throughout that time, which is now more than 10 years, we can say from perspective of Rimac Automobili that in Croatia, being a country that first of all doesn't really have a well-developed industrial sector, so also entrepreneurship only recently started to bloom. There was indeed a very good, and it still is a very good research community. But what we brought to the table, so to say, is a completely new technology that we couldn't even rely on our scientific, so academic institutions to be some kind of partner, some kind of evaluator, let alone peers. And there was huge knowledge and information asymmetry from one side, the company, and the other side, potential funding bodies, even banks, or whoever we were approaching to support the project. In Croatia, we didn't have that, and it's still very underdeveloped venture capital market, so risk capital is practically non-existing. So when you are in a very early stage of technology development and company development, so it goes not only on the technology but also the startup as well. It was very, very difficult to convince anybody to not to give money, but to support in any of the way. So we were from the start somehow relying on the European ecosystem, because at that time it was also difficult to get suppliers for the company, because we were an unknown company coming from Croatia, not very known for technology development in automotive. So our brand capital, so to say, was also non-existing. So, but this was also a good thing for us, because that way, not being able to get any supplies from the market, we turned ourselves. So everything we do now and everything what is our unique selling proposition is basically that the whole technology, all the components, everything that the company does is built in-house, which also means that we build the capacities in-house. And because we couldn't also rely on Croatian labor market to find proper candidates for the jobs. So battery technology engineers, these are people who build their expertise on trial error principles. But now they're one of the kind. They are able to do basically stuff that nobody else in the world is able to do. And this has become our unique selling proposition. And if we now take another look from the public bodies, and even what instruments there are on the European market, for building an ecosystem in Croatia, I think there is much ahead. There is much work that the government needs to do, and the solution is in synchronizing different policies to be geared towards the same goal, and that is to develop new industries. So it cannot be just a vision of one ministry that is responsible, let's say, for the economy, or the other that is responsible for education and research. They all have to be integrated in one policy. And I think in theory, it's nothing new, it exists, but in implementation, this is very, very fragmented, and therefore not reaching the results. And I can say that we now can see some similarities also on the European level. And one excellent example, I would say, for building European value chain, and therefore also ecosystems, because many different actors participate, are the IPCEI projects, the important project of common European interest, where we are a partner. So the recent one on notified on the battery value chain. But in theory, yes, it sounds excellent, but in practice, it means now that you have to go through lengthy, different procedure, which is okay if it's just one procedure. But now we are facing a situation we have to go through yet another procedure, because DG competition and DG regio are not in sync. And this is so our main suggestion would be to kind of synchronize different policies. We are not against any extra assessment, because it's public money, has to be done. But let's synchronize, let's integrate policies, and stop having the departmentalization of policy, because we won't get to the point. And that's how the ecosystem should be built. And then I can conclude only with saying that innovation policy is actually very, very broad term, and you can see that education, regulation, so talent, network, suppliers. We are also now struggling with. We are scaling up, and in the scale-up phase, you also need capex investment. You need investment in some costs, let's say, that are not directly related to R&D, you know, to innovation. For example, you have to acquire land, you have to acquire manufacturing facilities. So this is all related to technology development and production. So innovation in narrow term, I don't think it's going to solve any of our problems. I think we have.
Thank you, Antonia. If you allow me, so I would like to, because we receive a lot of interesting questions. So thank you very much for sharing your experience. Thank you very much for pointing out the importance of looking or bringing the different policies together, which is also another type of fragmentation, and the role of member states and European level. I have one question that probably I will ask Peter to reply in the Slido. What does it mean to have innovation ecosystem? Can member states have the same regulation at the European level? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that innovation ecosystems, I think, are by nature pretty local. So I think that cities play a very important role, and it's all about talent density in the end. So I think that we have many examples across Europe. I mean, there's a reason why like lots of cars are being made in Germany, because you have the whole ecosystem around cars. And here in Finland, we make a lot of games because we have a lot of games companies, highest density of game developers. And it just kind of like, let's say, happens a little bit like that. And it doesn't happen like overnight. These have been developing for like a long time. But then I'm not like super worried about having the exact same regulation like everywhere. Of course, I mean, we need to have a common like digital market, and we have a lot of work still to be done in that area. But I think that individual member states should really focus on, like, for example, what do we need to do now in Croatia to support the emerging ecosystem around, for example, cars and whatever it might be. So I think that it really is also about getting out of the way. And I think one thing that we should also always we should be very critical about in Europe. I think that we are maybe not really always putting kind of like the money where our mouth is. Or you could say that we are, because we are investing a lot in like these old industries or old businesses. So probably nobody believes that the future is about living on a farm in France or something like that. But I mean, we should invest in innovation, in technology, in the new emerging businesses, and not just keep maintaining kind of like the past. And young people are the future. Young people hang out at universities. We already talked about the fact that we have fantastic universities. Now we need to make that like even more fantastic, and we need to support the emerging ecosystems around the universities. And I think that's one area where we should build on our strength, that we have fantastic universities. So let's make it easier to then get businesses to pop up around these. And that's kind of like the success or basically the enabler of success. If you look at any successful ecosystem anywhere in the world, Silicon Valley, Berkeley, Stanford, you have Cambridge, Oxford, lots of innovation happening in these kind of areas. So the top universities are very, very key, and we should strengthen what we have there and make it even better.
Thank you very much. That brings me to the next question for Anita, because I have one question. Anita, you can complement to what Peter said. I see you wanted to. But I can ask you one other question that I see that in the slide, and I think it links to what Peter said about universities, about what she said before, linking universities with business and the industry. And the question in the slide is, how would Horizon Europe affect the university's position within the innovation ecosystem? Of course, it's very much focused about mission-oriented innovation ecosystem, but you can elaborate as you wish, and you can complement also what Peter said.
Yeah, I think every innovation ecosystem, whether it's at national level, regional level, or EU level, the one thing that it demands is a higher focus on leadership and less administration. Innovation ecosystems must be led and it can also, of course, it has to be administrated, but at the very top, it has to have some visions and missions. And in my opinion, EU is demonstrating leadership now with a clear, policy goals like the Green Deal or even the Horizon missions, where there are concrete challenges such as beating cancer, having 100 climate neutral cities by 2030. This will push the development towards a very strong European innovation ecosystem, no matter what country you come from. And I think it will it will accelerate collaboration and development between the universities, between the research institutions, investors, entrepreneurs. So I think that strong links between key actors in the European innovation ecosystem is necessary to succeed. But we haven't discussed much the role of the public sector, because the public sector is also key for transforming European economy. And the public sector cannot innovate by itself. It needs to be much more closer to technology and innovation that are made in the private market. So it needs to build bridges also here. But I think the most important thing to make innovation ecosystems work, I mean, we can look at Silicon Valley, we can look at Berlin Alley, we can learn from other regions, but Europe is now creating our own playbook. I think that is key. We cannot copy. We have to create it on the basis of fragmentation, on the basis of our challenges. And these challenges are really well connected to what are the key drivers of the sixth innovation wave. So I would say that EU is now braver than most single nations and member countries in setting ambitious and goals that nations have to stretch. And they will be affected by this. So having this overall innovation policy will help innovate and drive the direction that EU is taking now. So I think we're about to design the future ecosystems for innovation. It will be different. It's more open, and Europe is not. I mean, the whole philosophy at the European Innovation Council is that we want to include, and we want to make sure that focus, for example, on women and diversity in Europe. We really lack female entrepreneurs, investors, professors, high-scale technology projects. So there's a clear KPI coming from the European Innovation Council that we have to capitalize on all talents. It's a system that needs to mobilize for that, and we're doing it, and we're having good effects. There's a lot of work left, but I think we're in the right. I think EU is doing the right things now.
So, very positive message. And what I understood from what you said, Anita, is that this is the moment that we have to create our unique policy on innovation ecosystem. We don't have to copy the others. We have a particularity in Europe, and we can develop our policy towards innovation ecosystem based on the needs and strengths of Europe. And we use the fragmentation to make a strength out of it. But you mentioned also women. And there is another question on the slide that I would like to ask to Antonia. What is there for women entrepreneurs? You are a female entrepreneur. We are an inclusive continent in Europe or not? Can we do more for women? And what can we do more for skills as well? Because you said, Antonia, yourself, that you have to pull in the expertise in order to be able to establish your company, your unicorn. What we can do more for women, more women in innovation, more skilled people in innovation?
Mm-hmm. Well, in Croatia, we are hiring most of our engineers. I can say that we have a very good ratio of having our female engineers as well. But for females, so women entrepreneurs, I think there is still a lot to be done. We have to just be more willing to surmount any potential prejudice or stereotypes that might be for female entrepreneurs. And I think that the overall result would be good for the whole Europe. But I wanted to, since I'm not an entrepreneur myself, I'm a policy person. So I wanted to comment, if I may, on the innovation ecosystem and how they can be actually facilitated. I think that the role of entrepreneurs is to initiate ecosystem. It's if you look at each and every example in the world, it seems that they were done in a kind of a spontaneous manner. So it was never the government that actually, you know, brought the first light and was responsible for its success or development or scaling. So the public role is to facilitate it, and as Anita said, to be more brave in accepting, you know, in defining, identifying the demands, and then, you know, see how things develop by themselves. And I think that if access was given in the same way to all entrepreneurs, irrelevant of their gender or irrelevant of where they come from, you know, Croatia or, I don't know, Germany or Finland, then, and if it's about the content, if it's about answering the European challenges and the European demands, then the access should be open to everybody. And we see some good examples already in Europe of such ecosystem building. These are the EIT KICs, you know, the knowledge and innovation communities. However, in Croatia and I guess in other countries, under the RIS, so Regional Innovation Scheme, these are the modest innovators. They really lack participation, and one of the reasons is quite simple, because for getting access to the projects or collaborative projects, one should pay a membership fee. So this is perpetuating the innovation divide. Not only so that the companies or organizations from these countries cannot participate because they are not the original members. So this is one example, you know, how a good policy instrument can be, with a minor detail, perpetuating the divide. And I'm sure that there are many different examples that block the access to female entrepreneur to either to finance or to the ecosystem. We just have to be very careful on how the policy implementation is designed. I think that's the key there.
Thank you very much. Anita, I think you want to add something on these aspects, innovation and women.
Yeah, I think I just want to mention 5 concrete steps that the Innovation Council is doing now to support women innovators. And the first thing is introducing prizes for women innovators, because all research is telling us that women needs role models. So we're doing a lot with the prizes to demonstrate and to get to know female role models. Secondly, there is an aim that 40% of the startups or SMEs is going to have a female CEO for the final interview phase of the EIC Accelerator. So it's targeted 40%. Also, the EIC Business Acceleration Services is introducing women-specific leadership program. And also in May, it was launched support to women tech EU. And also the Enterprise Europe Network is supporting women-led companies to apply to EIC. So I think there's been a massive change in understanding also in EU that this is a major issue, because we need to capitalize on all talents, and we need to see how the different program groups, the program directors, how we select the winners, and also there's a lot of culture connected to who we think can be the best innovators. And feedback here is that it's all perception that it's men who can do it. We have to change that.
So thank you very much. So that means having concrete targets as part of the programs, as a policy of the funders, because we're talking about the European program, but could be also at national level, could something to be used to promote more women in innovation. Peter, from your side, I see another question and I attempt to ask you, what about intellectual properties? What we can do with intellectual properties? Innovation, open, collaboration, what about IP? What are the risks? What are the opportunities?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, of course, it's all about IP, but that doesn't stop us from doing open innovation and all of that. So I think that, but we need to value always IP, and that is kind of like where the value is. And also, I think that in that kind of like same domain, more coming from marketing and branding side as well, that the power is really, of course, in the brand, and we want to be the people here in Europe that we create that IP, also, the brands and everything. So again, I think that we're definitely not doing worse than others in that area either. But it's always good if we value IP even more. So I don't see that we have like any massive challenges in that area.
And related to that, there is one more question that I would like to ask you. EU companies are moving their R&D to China. Isn't it damageable to the EU? Provocative question.
I don't really see that is happening at any kind of like big scale. And I think that what we want to see is all of our economy is very, very integrated, like the EU, great example of that. But I mean, we want to, as the EU, we are very kind of like dependent on trading with others, be it the US, Japan, China, Vietnam, you pick a country, all of Latin America. So I think that again, it's only natural that then there is a cross-border R&D collaboration. And I think that there is a lot of, let's say, unnecessary paranoia in that area. Again, I mean, it's the same areas like with IP. And I think that we need to, of course, protect our IP. We need to protect our R&D, results and all of that. But I don't think that we should go in for this kind of like Fortress Europe kind of thinking that, hey, we can't work with anybody else, and China's a problem, and everybody else is a problem. I think that one way of getting kind of good European values, to be present all over the planet is to work with other people, and I think that that goes for all the mentioned countries and then some. So I don't see like any kind of like massive outsourcing of the R&D to other places. I mean, it's just that others are also investing heavily in R&D, and we need to do the same, and we need to create the IP here. And we already many times mentioned that we have fantastic universities here, so we just need to kind of like make that even better and make sure that then what we create in our universities, then the IP, stays here, the ownership of that IP stays here. But of course, we can work on R&D together with other people. I mean, we don't have all the best people in Europe. They don't have all the best people in the US or China or, you name it. So it's a very global world, and I think that the EU is kind of like one of the biggest supporters and sponsors of this kind of global and very open and international approach, and we need to keep it that way. That's what Europe is all about.
Thank you very much, Peter. So 45 minutes left. I will try to conclude, first of all, by thanking you for the exciting discussion we had today, which will follow for sure, because from the European side, we would like to have follow-up discussion on the future innovation policy, European innovation policy. And I would like to conclude with what Peter said, but it was said also as the highlight of today's discussions. We have fantastic universities in Europe. Let's make it easier for companies and innovation to grow around them through an effective and efficient and interconnected European, pan-European innovation ecosystem. Thank you very much. Looking forward to follow up the discussions with you and other stakeholders in innovators and young researchers in the future. Thank you.